I've gotten a few questions, and I thought it would be easier to answer them in a quick little video. First off, what brushes do I use? I'd say that my most used brushes are probably the shale brush that I like to use for line art. It is a default Procreate brush found in the calligraphy folder right here. Another one would be the medium hard brush and the medium blending brush, which I both use for coloring. It's also a default Procreate brush found in the airbrushing folder. So if we go to airbrushing, there's the medium hard brush and the medium blending brush. And yeah, so there's the medium hard and the medium blend is the other one. And if you have like another color, will kind of blend them a little bit and just have a bit of a softer look. Another brush that I use is the HB pencil brush, and I use that the most for sketching. It's another default brush, but it's found in the sketching folder. Yeah, and they're all pretty fun. Those are my most used brushes. If you notice, I've moved them all into this best folder just so that I could access them easy with a few other brushes that I also like to use. And a lot of them will have like extra like numbers and the little symbol next to them because I like to duplicate them and pop them into this folder so that they were next to each other, but I also had the original brush back in its original spot, so if anybody wanted to know what brushes I used, I could tell them like where they were. Except for this one that looks like that one I just duplicated and I left there, but anyway. Yeah, so I wanted to keep those original brushes so in their original folder. So also if I messed up a brush by like going to the settings and then saving and I didn't like it, that way I could always go back to the original. I do sometimes mess with the brushes a little bit, mostly just the streamline and stabilization. I'll change them a little bit depending on what I'm using the brush for. I like to make them less stable and turn these down when I'm sketching, and sometimes I'll turn them up a little bit when I'm drawing, and I can show you what that kind of looks like. I don't usually turn them up that much, but like this, it's kind of a smoother line, you know what I mean? It stabilizes the line a little bit, or streamlines it. Stable, yeah, anyway. And if you turn them down, like I'll turn them to 0 to show you, and it makes it kind of follow your hand a little bit better, which I think is just better for sketching and for coloring too. Another couple brushes that I also like to use are also base Procreate brushes, which are the Evolve brush. Where are you? This folder is already starting to get a little bit too cluttered. So this Evolve brush, which I did tinker with a little bit to get this evolved space brush. I tinkered with the spacing and jitter. There it is. Yeah, the spacing and jitter of this brush to get the more spaced, ooh, that's kind of big, the more spaced look. And here I'll show you I'll use it on the edges of things to kind of get a little bit more of a glittery kind of a look. And they are found in the drawing folder is where the Evolve brush is. And then the noise brush, which I sometimes use to add texture. And this one I just made it a little bit bigger, though it's a little bit more fuzzy and pixelated. So I don't really like using that one. But I do love the noise brush to add a little bit of texture on things sometimes, and it is found in the materials folder, which is right here. And it is, right here, yeah. Then the other brush that I use for sketching sometimes is this soft line art brush that I made right here. I'm continuously tinkering with it. I really should rename it though, because I never really actually use it for line art. I just sometimes sketch with it. You can see a few brushes in this folder that I've been working on and tinkering with that I've made. And I'm trying to make a good handful of brushes to like bundle in a brush pack, but I'm trying to fine tune them and test them out extensively before any of that actually happens. So that's what those are. Also, you'll see a few other Procreate base brushes in here that I only use sometimes, like the Myrtle brush, the Mercury brush, and the Studio pen are also in here. And yeah, those are base Procreate brushes that you can find. Anyway, those are my brushes. I'll let you know if I ever finish making that brush pack. Next question was about my intro animation, which I'll play right now, and my drawing PNGtuber. For the intro animation, I use the animation assist setting in Procreate right here. You can make a drawing and then every new layer you'll add will add like a new frame so you can see them. I've grouped them because when you make drawings in groups, it counts this as one frame instead of like if I were to just add a new layer, this would now be its own frame. But if I make that into a group, then I can have as many layers as I want in this folder, and that's considered one frame, if that makes sense. So yeah, for it, that's what I did. I don't really know almost anything about animation other than a few things that I've just picked up from YouTube videos. I've never really taken an animation class or anything, so I mostly just winged it and hoped for the best. And yeah, so to put it on the screen for my videos, I have Nova flying. Nova's this character, but I have her flying on a green background, so I can use the green screen feature in my video editing software to make her overlap over my video. For the PNGtuber, I first made this background frame that I want to put the PNGtuber in front of, and also this frame around that, and I do keep that in separate layers so that I'll show you why, because I have it set up in layers. So I drew Lacey in the pose that I wanted her to be in, and then I drew like a few different frames for her face for when she's talking, and so there's a few of them. And then I also have her, like, she has a blink when she's not talking and a blink when she is talking. And so that would be 4 files that I exported as GIFs. A talking, a blinking, while talking, not talking, and not talking with a blink were the 4 files. So I exported them and sent them to my PC. On my PC, I use a software called PNGtuber Mini. I'll link it in the description. It looks like they're making a more complex version, which is exciting, but as of right now, I'm just using this mini one. It's pretty straightforward. It'll have you upload each one of these 4 poses into their corresponding places on this side, right side of the screen. You can adjust different things, like making the PNGtuber bounce, like when you're talking, or like jitter, like now she's jittering now when I'm talking. Or I guess that it's called it shaking. This one is vibing, so like rocking a little bit, jumping. This is a jumping one, so you can change stuff like that, or even just like when you open your mouth and talk, she'll jump like that, if you can see. So I put her on a green screen, only I make the green screen purple since Lacey, my character, is wearing green and I don't want to accidentally edit out her outfit. Because, she's also wearing green. That way I can record this screen on my computer with OBS along with my audio while I'm drawing, and then also record my iPad screen at the same time, and then match up and merge the clips together on my computer when I edit the video. So I used to use CapCut, but I decided to switch to Wondershare Filmora, but I imagine you can do this with most editing software. So I take each layer I have and layer them top to bottom with the PNGtuber on the top, and then here, I'll move her over because I've not green screened her out yet so you can see the other frames. And then this frame I have, and then I put the footage that I recorded from my iPad, and then the background image, which is just, let me hide these so you can see, and then this just background. That's why it has the big black squares, because when I put this on top of it, it's almost like my iPad, right? Okay, so that's how I layer them. So, and then I just rearrange and fiddle with the, sizes, so that I've got that down, and then I've got the frame, which is just, I already made it the right size, so I don't have to fiddle with it. And then the PNGtuber, except for I edit out her background, if I can remember where it is. Just a green screen thing. So then you can play with whatever your software you have, if it has settings for green screen editing to, anyway, and move her around into the right spot. And that's basically what I do with my PNGtuber. If you don't have as many elements floating around, like you're not recording your iPad and having a drawing on site and you just have the PNGtuber, you can just have the PNGtuber on like a screen. Here, let me go back to the video tube and here's background. You can have it be transparent or an image. And I already made and then put this image in here, and then looks like I'm gonna have to move her a little bit, and change her size a little. And I'll probably write down what I have her at, so that, and if what I change, I don't have to do that every time. But and then you could just have this instead if you just are talking, and you don't have like a video like footage to show alongside. Anyway, it's a little easier to do it that way if that's the way you want to do it. The last question was about my art style and art inspirations, and you totally nailed the Tinkerbell books inspiration. I love the art in those books. I have a few other things that inspire me, and it does change a little bit with time. Lately, for example, I've been really inspired by old, traditionally drawn anime and cartoons, and just old TVs in general, and just the textures that those have because of their oldness. I've been playing around with different effects that make my artwork look textured and fuzzy, like it's being displayed on an old TV, and I've had a lot of fun with that. Liminal space images and 90s, 2000s nostalgic stuff has also been influencing my artwork, mostly in the paintings that I've been working on behind the scenes that I haven't shown anyone yet. If you are interested in do want to see behind the scenes and paintings and stuff, I do post that stuff mostly on my Patreon for people who are interested in that kind of thing. I also get inspiration from games that I play. The Elder Scrolls, the Mass Effect trilogy, Dragon's Dogma 2, and Monster Hunter are probably the biggest ones. I feel like it's harder to see those inspirations in my art because I think my stuff tends to be a little bit more bubbly than the overall tone of those, but they definitely have all inspired my art in some way. For example, I have a few OCs that started as characters that I created from those games, like in the character creator. These two started as characters that I made in Dragon's Dogma originally, and then they kind of evolved from there. Also, I have to mention those classic Barbie movies that I honestly rewatch all the time. My favorites would probably be Fairytopia, Mermaidia, and of course, Princess and the Pauper. I feel like that's on every classic Barbie movie watcher's list. Another big source of inspiration for me is other artists. I'm going to try my best saying all of these names correctly. Sometimes Instagram handles confuse my brain and I mix up letters and yeah. But I'll also put the screenshots of their username and page on the screen, and I'll also link them in the description too, so it's easier for you to check them out if you're interested in looking at more of their work. The biggest inspiration in my art journey has definitely been drawing with waffles here on YouTube. I don't know if I would have ever picked up a digital tablet without her inspiration. Nowadays she tends to work traditionally in her sketchbook. Back in the day when she started making videos, she drew digitally, and that's where my inspiration came from, is because I'm an old watcher. I watched a lot. I started watching her back in the old days. I remember how excited I was though to first try digital art out. At the time, I also remember trying to make digital speed paint videos, which I would upload to YouTube. Like that was like almost 8-ish years ago now. They were honestly quite terrible, and I have since privated them, but that's definitely been a big inspiration for me, is drawing with waffles, with the whole digital art thing, and even thinking about using YouTube as a place to show my artwork. Another artist I've followed for a long time that has had a big influence on me is Lois von Barl. Since I've followed her in our work for such a long time, it's been really cool to watch how her artwork has changed with her. It really reminds me to embrace change in my own art and not to hold on too tightly to a certain style or process. If other ideas or processes are coming more naturally to me, I should explore them and not worry too much about, I mean, in some cases consistency is important, like if you're working for like a client or on like a visual novel or something, you want it to be consistent. But when it just comes to what you're drawing as an individual and individually, that change can be a good thing. I also love all of the shapes in Lois's work. She's a shape and form master, in my opinion, and I find that really inspirational. And it's also kind of educational to study someone else's art as well. Gretel Lesky makes some gorgeous artwork. I love following her work. I really love her line work and colors. I originally started to really embrace line art because of how much I loved her work. Geneva Bowers is another artist that I love to follow. The colors and visual storytelling in her artwork always makes me feel so inspired to make art. I especially love the storytelling that she has. She's great at that. She also has a really fun blog-like Patreon that I love to follow. And some other artists that I really love to follow, and I really love their artwork. I've listed them and the links to their Instagram accounts in the description, so you can check them out too. They're also big inspirations, but if I talk too much, this video will be too long. So that is most of the questions that I've gotten that I thought would be easier to answer in a video. But yeah, if you have any more questions, let me know. And that is everything. Thanks for watching. Bye.